Hello and welcome back to the channel. So, Crazy Steve, huh? Beloved recurring character on Drake and Josh. Slightly unstable and loves his enchiladas. That's who he is, right? Well, I thought it would be fun to really dive into the character. So without further ado, let's look at this amazing character in some more depth. So Steve himself was brought to life by the talented Jerry Trainer, a man very well known to Nickelodeon, who would later go on to voice the titular character in the series Butch Hartman's Tough Puppy, along with the childish Vinny in Nickelodeon's short-lived series Wendell and Vinny. Not a series I ever watched, but one which wasn't the best perceived, so I hear. Trainer also had a minor role in the popular show Malcolm in the Middle, appearing in the episode Evacuation. Outside of Crazy Steve, his arguably most well-known role is the irresponsible artist Spencer Shea on both the original run of iCarly and the more recent adult reboot of the series under the same title. Not much is known about his early days on the show. Given his talent as an actor and repertoire of small roles at the time, it was likely Trainer was urged to audition for the role of Crazy Steve on Drake and Josh. The role fit Trainer's style of acting very well, and clearly it paid off. The slapstick nature of Crazy Steve elevated him above the rest of the recurring cast in my opinion. And on March 28, 2004, the episode Movie Job premiered on Nickelodeon, and fans were introduced to the ever so iconic Crazy Steve for the very first time. Do you know what's most surprising about Steve as a character? The amount of appearances he has on the show. I was shocked when I saw the amount listed on a wiki page. He has 9 episode appearances if you include Big Shrimp as 2 separate episodes, and plays a role in the television movie Merry Christmas Drake and Josh. It's crazy that a character who has this much impact on the show has so few appearances across it. So his one and only appearance in his debut season, season 2, is the movie job, where he gets overly upset by a minor complaint from Josh. He then decides to quit his job and walk out of the premiere theatre. I think what makes this so amusing is how normal, calm and collected he seems at first. It gives such good shock value for him to react the way he did, especially on a first viewing. Steve has another one-off appearance in the season 3 episode We're Married. In order to make his pen pal and long-distance friend happy, Josh asks Crazy Steve to track down a foreign film native to a fictional country. She enjoys the sentiment, but confesses that she's seen the film too many times. Steve gets upset, and rightly so. 5 hours of work for nothing. I'm with Steve on this one.
Somebody's gonna be watching Eck Glockman tonight. Well, somebody's gonna be an organ donor before their 17th birthday, Josh. Nickel!
It's next in season 4 that we have arguably Steve's biggest appearance of the whole show. During the episode, The Storm, Steve joins the family and friends at a house party. Everyone gets trapped due to poor weather, and Steve demands to watch TV on a crankable device, forcing Craig to just stand there and crank. It's here where we learn Steve is a die-hard Dora the Explorer fan and seems to be able to speak some Spanish, possibly from his repeated viewing of Dora the Explorer. Who's to say? What makes this joke funny is how calm Steve is with Mrs. Parker, whereas he's unhinged with Craig. In addition to this, Steve is blissfully wrecking a couch cushion, while we learn that Helen invited Steve to this party.
I had to. See, a couple years back, Crazy Steve found out my niece was having her bat mitzvah, and he got upset because he wasn't invited. So while we were all in the temple, Crazy Steve showed up and slashed everybody's tires.
Steve had a more minor recurring role in the episode Josh is Done, where we see a softer side as he's having general conversation as Drake's life falls apart. But equally falls back on old habits when Josh won't help him with a task. Which is fair. I mean, it is Josh's day off and all, so. In the episode, Eric Punches Drake, we as the spectator listen as Steve expands on his life a little bit more. So, Crazy Steve gives him a squeeze toy that his therapist offered him to deal with his anger management. I was both surprised and not surprised that Steve has a therapist, to be honest. During the episode, Megan's First Kiss, Drake and Josh are very suspect of Megan's new boyfriend and disguise themselves as rabbis to spy on her date. They end up terrorizing a lady in the theatre who gets Helen and Steve for help.
What is the problem?
Apparently, Steve was full on ready to do some damage with a bat, and is seemingly disappointed when it turns out to be Drake and Josh instead. In another episode, The Battle of Pamphatar, we learn that Steve is also a huge Galaxy Wars fan, A classmate of Drake and Josh is having a Galaxy Wars themed party, and Steve is noticeably annoyed that he isn't invited to this party. Despite not knowing this person, Steve confronts him anyway.
You know, I didn't receive an invitation.
I don't know you.
Your loss!
Ah, I wish I had Crazy Steve's social confidence. In the series finale, Really Big Shrimp, Josh's girlfriend Mindy becomes the new assistant manager of the premiere. She makes such a fatal mistake. She makes Steve work on a Monday.
Monday's his bad day.
It is then up to Josh to sing a song to calm Steve down. Helen follows him into the staff room where she doesn't have enough milk to keep him calm. Outside of the main series, Steve appears in the television movie Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh, where he created artificial snow by grinding up a whole lot of cheese. And has a minor role in the Sam and Cat episode #SuperPsycho, where he is seen as a resident at Peter Sinay Hospital. Although not portrayed by Jerry Trainor, but instead by Matt Little, with Jerry Trainor voicing the character, which is a fun little Easter egg. I have often wondered why Crazy Steve exists on this show. Don't get me wrong, he is one of my favourite characters and I find him infinitely funny. Mostly due to Trainor's portrayal, but still. At face value, I think the most honest reasoning behind who he is, and his existence, is as mundane as they need to fill the theatre scenes with recurring characters, to make the set more utilised and give life to all the theatre scenes. Steve, Helen and Gavin all do this. They're staple characters of that set. The most intriguing thing to me is how few appearances Steve has during season 2 and 3. From the movie job onwards, the premiere theatre becomes as recurring of a set as Drake and Josh's home and their school, so it seems weird not to use him more. Right from the bat, Helen becomes a fan favourite, her interactions with both titular characters being funny and really contrasting the two. My best guess would be the writers may have intended Steve to just be a one-off. He gets annoyed and quits. That one hilarious scene was it. They saw the fan reception of this character and decided to do more. Maybe the scene in We're Married was to test the water some more. Do people really want more Crazy Steve? Could he really work on the show? I know there is an argument to be made that at times he may be too deranged to the extent that it would border on character flanderization, but then again, Steve as a concept is very one note. He's angry and unpredictable. His title of Crazy Steve tells you exactly what you're going to get. I find the darker implications really funny, especially for a more family-oriented show. As he and Helen have alluded to him being arrested in the past and the possibility of needing a SWAT team to deal with him. That's how potentially dangerous Steve can be. To be honest, I wish we got more of that. If Drake and Josh ever got the more adult treatment like iCarly got, then that's what I would want from him. Drake and Josh is a heavily slapstick show. It's random, fun and goofy. It's the kind of comedy this show has. If you look at the various aspects of their life, like at home, Megan tortures them in often comedic ways. While Walter is just a very slapstick betrayal at a father, the comedy is formulated via these characters. In a similar vein, I would argue Craig and Eric are the slapstick stereotypes of nerds during the noughties. While their English teacher and Josh's girlfriend Mindy tortures Drake, the same character archetypes are being filled. To me, that's what Steve does too. Helen gives Josh abuse and puts him down, the same way Miss Hafer puts Drake down. Which is why Crazy Steve fits so well in here. He terrorizes Josh at work. All these characters have their quirks, but they all fit a similar role. Like Steve terrorizes most people, but the setup often means he scares Josh more than anyone else. Which makes sense. Josh is a main character, and he works there. We followed Josh, so we witness Steve torment him. The biggest difference is, I would argue, Steve is by far the most slapstick and memorable character on the show. To me, that's who Crazy Steve is and always will be. What did all of you think of this video? I would love to hear your thoughts on Steve in comments down below. If you enjoyed what you saw, then could you please hit that like button and subscribe? It will help my channel continue to grow. Next time you're at the cinema, be on the lookout for unhinged staff. I'll see you all in the next one.